All right. Hey, it's on. And it's working. Fantastic. All right. Just hoping that works. Okay. Hopefully. Hopefully that link came on. Trying to make sure. Blah. Yes, I know it is running, but I am kind of watching the counter thingy. Anyway. Let's see. Probably is going to take a couple minutes for people to come on, if anyone's going to come on. But I'm still going to talk even if no one chooses, because why not? Hopefully this works. All right. Let's see here. So yeah, I figured that actually a fun thing that I want to talk about. So I'm going to talk about it is, hopefully this does not start musicking. No music. I'm gonna, oh good, it is working. Yay. Hello, Sandra. Okay, I'm gonna close that. Trying to make sure my computer has all the extra stuff off so it works well. But yeah, let's see. One of them that I do want to talk about, just because it's fun to talk about them, is actually the places. One of the more fun ones is the fire planets that most people don't really. Hello, GMAT. Yes, hello. And the fireplaces are really cool considering everything on the planet is actually made out of fire. The trees are fire, the rain is fire, the like everything is fire. And it makes it really cool considering they have areas that kind of look like water, but it's made out of fire. But because they have fire whales there and like all sorts of different creatures that you'd both recognize and not recognize. And so the whales, they'd like be in like a lake or something, but then they would go under and they'll come up what looks like a meadow because it's not as solid. And so they can pretty much go anywhere they want to. And they have really cool cities there because they'll be like, they'll have this fire like cliff thing that kind of overhangs like this. And the city will be under here upside down. And it goes downward. And it's like really big. And they have those all over the place on various, they like mountains there. It's really funny. But yeah, and it's like all the different colors of fire. And it, yellows, whites, reds, orange, blue, purple. And yeah, so it's pretty, it's one of my more fun places that I like to go to. Mainly considering there's just a lot of funness to be had there, considering fire, that's all like energetic and stuff. So everyone around there is like super energized all the time. Hello, Michelle. Smile. But yeah, so does anyone have any questions about anything? Anyone in particular? Give a pause to see if there's actually an answer. Dun dun dun. Yeah, another one that a lot of actually a group of creatures that really want to be talked about that are not talked about ever are the shadow creatures, and they're really cool. I've seen a lot of them that actually here. I've seen a lot of shadow wolves, and Sandra, why do people think they need to do it? Need to do what? What do they need to do? I mean, really, people think they have to do a lot of things. So which thing? There's a lot of things. While I'm waiting. But yeah, the shadow wolves, they're really cool. A lot of times there's just like a lot of creatures that are just made out of different materials than what you're used to. Sandra, gifting, putting food out? Oh! Yeah, putting food, that was just traditional. It was a way to call them in. It was humans, you know? It's kind of just a invitation, really, and showing your appreciation for them. And, you know, if you want them to come around, then giving them kind of an incentive to come around. So that's really all it was. And then it kind of became more ritualistic over time, but really it was just kind of like, you know, I appreciate you. You're a good friend. I like you. I know you like this, so I'm going to put this out for you. Uh, uh, and all the other stuff. A lot of time, I mean, as people started going away from from magical creatures in general, then the ones that still believed it kind of like they kept trying harder and harder to keep with them in a way. So that was a good way to try to cling to being able to see them. And then even after they couldn't see them anymore, it was a good way of remembering. Because a lot of, I mean, most people when they're kids, they play with fairies all the time, all different kinds of magical creatures. But then, you know, your parents and your teachers and your older siblings and your friends and everyone tells you, no, it was imaginary friends. No, it was your imagination. You were just a kid. And eventually you start to believe them. And then, but by creating the fairy houses, by giving out gifts, by just stubbornly going, no, I remember this, then they kind of look like the oddballs, but they actually retain the memories. And they're, even as adults, the ones that do that, they can still see glimpses. So it kind of makes sense that they would do it. I mean, it works for them a lot. That's how a lot of adults manage to still be able to see flower fairies, even though they grow up and have been bombarded by this onslaught of no, you're crazy for believing that in fairies. So and actually like what is it, Iceland, I think Iceland is still like most people there, I believe they all believe in fairies, like they do fairy trees and stuff. And as a result, a lot of them, they have accounts of seeing fairies and all the time. So it's a good way of tying memories and trying to make it real, and it works actually. Blah, 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 blah. And Michelle, yes, the shadow beings, aren't they fun? I like them. They're more subdued, but I like them. Yeah, and the hospitality thing. Pretty much. Plus, in a way, really, the fairy houses, those are just fun. I mean, it's very fun putting all that little stuff together again and thinking in terms of small. Okay, is this useful, or am I just being a little weird on this one? Okay, this one's useful. Sandra, yeah, shadow beings are 5D. They can drop, I mean, because like I said, I'm seeing them now. So they can drop down. They don't really like to, but they'll only drop down to like high 4D in small increments. It's kind of them kind of going, come on, you can see us. Especially considering a lot of times people will see them and then they kind of do a double take because they're like, that shadow looked like something. Was that something? No, that's just a shadow. And that's also a fun game to play, you know, make the humans do a double take, which fairies enjoy doing that a lot. Yeah, like scaring humans. They like the reactions of humans as a general rule, even if it's considered negative, like because they think it's very funny. And I actually agree, considering, you know, people in haunted houses, they're hilarious. So I kind of understand that actually. But yeah, the shadow beings, there's like they can shift and like kind of make themselves look like different things. But as a general rule, most of them have their preferred form that they spend a lot of time in. So that's where you get like the shadow wolves and shadow horses, and you got the shadow people, and they're the ones that like to mess with people probably more than the others. And they can get away with a lot without humans actually acknowledging that they've seen what they've seen. And yeah, they're definitely on the trickster category. Not so much the wolves and like the more animals, because they just are more they're more chill. Like they're more chill like animals are, but they still will play with humans. Michelle, There is a short shadow being like a cat around here recently. Yeah, yeah. You got the cats. You got the you have the shadow cats. They'll do like hybrids a lot of times. They like doing hybrids a lot. Um, and small. Small is very fitting for them because that makes it better for their tricksy ways if they're smaller. So yeah. Uh, like a lot of times they just kind of morph around a lot though. So like the cat, yeah, yeah, meow. Yeah, I'm trying to like actually think. One of my problems is whenever I do start talking about it, I get kind of overloaded with everyone who wants to talk, and then it kind of merges. So I'm going, no, 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 no. Like specify, group out. Um, kind of becomes tricky. Um, let's see. Like another group that is constantly pestering to be known about are like I class them as horned creatures just because there's a bunch of them and it's a good way to classify a group of them, even though a lot of them are very different from each other. But they're constantly chittering at me to talk about them. The only reason I class them together is because they are typically like individual. They're not a race. They're just this person, and they most of the time have horns. So that's how they kind of got grouped together. And a lot of them don't even like names either, which makes it very difficult for me to talk about them in any way, shape, or form. So, and they don't really understand that I need something to label them as to put in the book or to talk about. Um, I imagine, Michelle, you understand this quite well of the not knowing, not having names and not doing this or that, and then insisting that you talk about it at the same time. Or paintings. Um, there's this one that's a horned, and she's definitely a female. And her horns are uh, like a like a ram's almost, or you'll see, hello Kim. You'll see a lot of dragons are given these kind of horns, but those like round ones that swoop around like this. And she, other than that, she's completely humanoid, and she always has a this globe that she loves her globe. She loves this globe, and she'll throw it, and she'll use a bow and arrow to shoot it. It's her favorite game. And so she she also actually does a lot of magic, and she wants a lot of people to like start talking to her again because she can help with a lot of the magic that was lost over the last couple thousand or so years. She remembers it all, and apparently, like she was one of them that would tell people a lot and kind of help them do it. And so she wants to be talked about, so people will start talking to her. That's the case with a lot of them. Actually, it's not so much they want anything specifically known, but they want the invitation put out there to try to talk to them. They want enough belief about them so that you can actually start to hear them, you can start to see them, so you can start to talk to them, learn from them, and play. Really, mainly it's playing, but there are quite a few that are good teachers. They love teaching. There's also a lot of storytellers, and like the Leviathan. Leviathan's a huge storyteller. The centaurs tend to be very good storytellers. Actually, a lot of the water creatures, they're big on storytelling. A lot of the air, a lot of them that are more classically known, they're big on music. They want to share the music. They want humans to dance to the music again. They want the humans to start playing the music with them again. They're pretty much in all realms. They're very, very, very impatiently just like really want their humans back. Because there's like this one world that's a primary fairy world, and it's all music. All communication is through music. So music is very, very, very important to them, and they want humans to start hearing it again. Because once upon a time, long, 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 long time ago, humans could understand the music as language like the fairies could. And so they want them to come back with that. And jokes. Yeah, Michelle, they love their jokes. practical jokes and speaking jokes. Yeah, actually, Michelle, I did see a couple comments from you about the centaur. They're pretty. I like them. Like, I don't know yours in particular, considering I know them more kind of as more a studying way, like more observation than actual interaction. But I do know I like the centaurs, and it's very cool that you have one around you. It is a specific one, right? I'm actually reading up to see if I missed something. Huh. But yeah, like most of them, like there's another one. A lot of the horned ones, they're big on teaching. They're big on magic. That probably is why so many of the deities are described with horns. It's probably a lot of them, actually, that do that. Like there's this another horned one. I'm forgetting her name. I think her name was like Ilana or something. I'm pretty sure that's what she liked to call herself. But she's another horned creature, and she specializes in alchemy. And she wants to get back. She wants to start teaching humans alchemy again. She really likes teaching that. And actually, those two look similar. Which is kind of funny, actually. You'd think they're. I'm used to like the fairies that like to be all weird and stuff, so it's kind of funny that they actually look very similar to each other, but they're completely different entities. Oh, yeah. Let's see. Who else? Hang on. Oh, the snails. Yes. The snails and the squirrels and the there's tiny fairies. These are more like the flower fairies, and they're half traditionally human, and the other half is snail. And if any of you have seen Neverending Story, remember the racing snail that was in there? It's like, oh no, it's super slow, and then it's super fast. Well, that's what the snail fairies actually like to do a lot. They actually race each other a lot. And they'll go back and forth between being like painstakingly slow for amusement value, and then they'll just move so fast that they almost teleport up to these different areas. And so that was pretty. Those guys are pretty funny. They also like to go upside down a lot and just kind of hang there. And then because they think it's hilarious because to them they're like, how are we doing this? This does not look right. Kind of like bumblebees. They don't look like they should fly. Well, they think that snails should not be upside down. So they love, of course, being upside down, looking like snails. And a lot of times also whenever they race, sometimes whenever they're like at more kind of concentrated with other people, so then you'll have other fairies up on top of them pretending to like control them even though they're not. But then it makes it all the funnier whenever they're racing each other. And then they'll like do these elaborate race courses in gardens. And then they'll go from like really, really slow. And like they talk to each other like, okay, this is kind of the slow section. So they'll go zip, 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 and then slow racing. And then they'll go back to super fast. And they go back and forth constantly. And it's really funny watching them. Michelle, I was at a party today dancing with earthworms. Line dancing. Yeah. Well, considering you're pretty much a fairy in and of yourself, so I'd be amazed if you ever did anything serious, really. But yeah, isn't it funny how, I mean, like of the fairies, even the classic fairies, normally there are so many of them that take on forms that you wouldn't think, like the earthworms. You would never think in a million years that a fairy would ever remotely look like an earthworm, or a snail, or a squirrel. That's another big one. Kim, I love dancing with fairies. Yes, it's very fun, very fun. If you can ever like learn any kind of, they especially love flute music, or people that even they're not really musically inclined. A good way to kind of work around that problem is get a kalimba, because you don't even have to know how to play it, and you make really pretty noises, and it kind of sounds musical even though you don't know what you're doing. And that's a great way to like kind of play with them even though you don't really know how to play. And so that'd be a good thing to do. Mom actually does that all the time. She has a little kalimba that she'll just ding, 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 ding. And you can do that out, like especially like out next to like a stream or a bunch of flowers, or if you see a bunch of hummingbirds or butterflies, dragonflies, any of those, go out and like just ping with a kalimba, and you can, that would probably actually help a lot, considering, like especially if you're thinking about them while you're doing it. Plus it'd just be fun, you know, considering I've actually played with Mom's kalimba. It's really fun actually to to play those. A lot of the flower fairies, they like I said, they like flutes, and then they also really like violins. They really like violins. There's this one guy that he's hung around me since I was really tiny, probably since birth. But he's a flower fairy, and he has dragonfly wings, and he has one of two instruments. He either has a violin or he has drums. The little bongo drums, the two drums, like that is how he talks. It's between those two, and he always has one of them. And so he's very fun because he's always playing with clothes too. Classic of all flower fairies, they love playing with their clothes. They're always making new clothes, and so yeah, he's always trying different outfits like all the time. It's very funny. He's like, hell, if you ever thought to consider it, asking to see a fairy, what do they call them here? Fashion show. They actually have fashion shows just for fun, and then they'll come based off of each other. Then they'll come up with even new things to create clothing-wise. They're always learning new stuff from humans. They love watching humans' clothing, so they can come up with new ones. They love clothes. It's very funny. Let's see here. Kim, I need finish my fairies and his spouse, and oh, you're making a fairy house. Yeah. If you're gonna make a fairy house, stick with as much natural materials as possible, and definitely make it yourself. Think in terms of actual practical use. Because they really like that, and it's gotten a little corporate-ish. It got trendy there for a while, so they don't really like the pre-made houses. They don't really like those at all. They don't really like a bunch of plastic. They don't care per se, but they seem to mess with the things that are natural. Yeah, even if it's just pretty, they'll get bored in 2 seconds if it's only for pretty. Like, so definitely make sure that they can actually use it in some way, or else they're going to look at it and kind of go, oh, that's pretty, and then buzz off. So yeah, they really like the little, you know how you see a acorn top that's been taken off and it looks like a cup. They love those. They love little swings and things, especially if you can do it so that it stays alive. They really like stuff that's like covered in moss and stuff, like the roof, considering then they can play on the roof and it's like soft, and they like how moss feels. So that'd be like good carpeting and stuff. But yeah, so playability top priority, and then pretty is also important just because they like shiny things. They like pretty things, but it also has to have some kind of function, or else they'll get bored very fast. They have very, very, very small attention spans. I cannot emphasize this enough. Very small attention spans. Oh yeah, we do. Get this stuff. I was afraid. Okay, so yeah, you got this stuff together. Yeah, you can have a lot of fun with like bark. You can do a lot of stuff with the bark to make trees out of, the houses out of, and leaves. Leaves are very fun to put them all together. Yeah, lots of acorns. Lots of acorns are good. And then once you've like finished it and stuff, then you know you can put out little bits of honey or little bits of like crumbs of cake and stuff. And you know, if you're not into, if you don't play any music, then, you know, you could play music and that'll draw them in. And whenever you place it or where you're thinking of putting it, it's better if there are flowers around. They just like them better. Like they'd be happy otherwise, but if you're going the whole nine, you may as well put them close to flowers because they really like flowers. And they're pretty and they can play with them a lot. So of course they love flowers. They also like, they love doing the leaf boats. They love the leaf boats. Hell, even Mr. Grin. Mr. Grin loves the leaf boats too. He's forever shrinking down so he can play with the leaves. He'll also, remember that scene in Fern Gully? If you've seen Fern Gully where they're surfing down the leaf all the way down. Yeah, they do that a lot. And they're either very classic or very, very freaky. There's this one fairy that I saw one time, and she decided she was going to go very scary, like just disturbing, scary. And it was hilarious. I dubbed her the Tooth Fairy because she went like, she decided to make herself, she gave herself fangs. She gave herself slit eyes, the more cat kind of reptile, skinny eyes. And kind of these like long nails that almost were claw-like. And slightly tattered wings that were dragonfly, and then ripped up clothes. And then she decided she made a tooth, a human tooth, and she carried that around. And so I dubbed her the Tooth Fairy because she thought it was hilarious to like go around and see if she could get any humans to see her like that, and then get the reaction of the holy shit, what the hell? Because you don't normally think like a flower fairy, but then she tweaked it to make herself look scary. It was so funny. Let's see here. Let's see here. So much like me, he loves fairies. Like the classic fairies, or just like all fairies? Like which batch of fairies? Kim. Considering, yeah, most people definitely go with the flower fairy route, which is understandable, and they're very fun. But then you got actually the same flower fairies. A lot of times they'll get bored, and so then they'll decide to shift. Like another one that I saw, and she hangs out actually occasionally down in the creek, and she's always trying new things. But one of them that was really fun that she did was she mixed human with frog. So she had these, and then she decided to give herself these giant hand flippers that were like webbed around, and she made them like really big compared to her body. And she gave herself a giant frog mouth, and then 2 little slits for her nose, and then she gave herself pigtails to offset. And it was the funniest thing. She made her arms like super skinny and then a lot longer. And she always, she sat down like a frog and she hopped around like a frog, and she thought it was the funniest thing. Let's see here. All fairies. Yeah. Well, who can't love the fairies? I mean, they're just so fun and wonderful in a whirlwind of just insanity. Let's see here. In Maine at the gardens, they have this little fairy town with little houses that people stop and make. Oh, that's cute. Oh, that's got to be so fun. Yeah, I bet they love that. I bet they absolutely love that. I like anyone that encourages that, actually. That's cool. Sandra, what about the cities in the clouds? Oh, there's lots of cities in the clouds. Yeah, there's lots of those. Yeah, all of it's made out of cloud. Well, there are 2 different kinds, actually. So, no, there's 3 different kinds. You have the kind of cities that are completely made out of clouds, like the fireplace, where it's all made out of fire, except for the creatures. A lot of them, they don't actually look cloudish. I mean, there's some that are, but it's not the majority. So exactly, it's like everything is just made out of clouds. The skyscrapers, everything. Then you got the other kind of cloud cities where it's just the base of it that is made out of clouds. And then what's up above it just kind of looks more like a regular city, only it's made out of more like stone and stuff. And But other than that, so I mean, really, it's just the baseline that has the clouds around it. And then you have the third kind where it's similar to the last one, only instead of it made out of stone and stuff, they actually make it all out of air. But it's air that is, whenever you're outside looking at it, you can kind of see whiffs of it, like wisps of it, but for the most part, it's see-through. But then if you go in, you can see out, and like if you're outside looking in, you can't see the people. So it's a very interesting, like you can see through it, but you can't actually see inside of it, considering it'll be completely furnished and everything, but you won't see that from the outside. And then if you're outside, you won't see, unless you're looking through a window, you won't see any of the people walking around out in the cities. And so those are the three different kinds of cloud cities that there are, that I know of anyway. I'm sure there's probably more. They're always making new stuff. But no, you can actually see a lot of the cities in the clouds right now, actually. You won't be able to get to them until you get high enough to be able to, but they are a good kind of glimpsing into, again, it's kind of like this is possible. So you'll, if you're just close enough to see it, then it'll kind of help going, okay, I'm going in the right direction. This is awesome. I can keep going. And then whenever you get high enough, then you can actually go to the cities in the clouds. Michelle, I was seeing frog beings this week. Aren't they cool? I think they're so cool. I think they're so fun. And it's also funny whenever they decide to like start grabbing stuff with their tongues. It is the funniest thing. Like I saw these two of them, the one that I was talking about, and then another one kind of mimicked her but changed it up a little bit. Like she did both hands and feet flippers, and then the other one decided to add a tail because they wanted a tail. And then the hands were smaller. And so just different tweaks. But then they decided to start playing this bizarro game of fetch, only they were only using their tongues to like throw this like pebble back and forth. It was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. Very entertaining to just sit back and watch them come up with stuff. Let's see, Michelle, I love being in the clouds. Well, I'm sure you're always making stuff out of clouds, like probably, you know, boats and cars, and you could, especially like, I mean, you can make anything out of clouds. So I would not be surprised if there's a whole bunch of like bumper pools that are made out of clouds. It'd be pretty funny. Michelle, I have a crystal carnival in the again, I'm not surprised. See, and there's another one. Yep. So clearly there's also a crystal equivalent that I didn't even know about. So did you make it, or was it there and you happened to just go there? Michelle. Kim, Planet X, is it real? Planet X? Oh, is that new planet that they made and named it horrible? It's like just a string of numbers and letters or something. Have you noticed humans have gotten very unoriginal with naming things? I mean, like Planet X and then Planet like 95Z-28. Yeah. Nibru. That would be a 4D place. So, I mean, yeah, it's there, but it's a 4D place. So, really, I mean, all of the 4D places, they're really not that different from here. They're really not. I mean, picture all of the fancy tech you see from sci-fi, add those in together. Different places have the bright, shiny, and then the dark and muggy, and all of the sci-fi stuff. That's all out there. All of it. And it's just very boring because it's even the other beings, all of the different aliens that are in 4D, they act very kind of human-ish. Yeah. And so they're just, it's boring. I'm not into it. They're too serious. That's part of my problem with them is they're way too serious in 4D. They're way too upset about everything. And they don't have enough fairies, clearly. Michelle, lots of rainbows at the carnival. Well, that's awesome. I like that a lot. But did you make it or did you go there? Was it there beforehand or did you make it? I am very curious about this. Mainly considering that'd be very cool to see crystal cities, crystal carnivals and stuff. That just sounds so awesome. I love it. I love it so much. You made it. Well, good on you. I like it. So has it already become like a raging success amongst everyone? I imagine it probably has. Like all of a sudden you have that right there is Piota, and she's gone. She vanished. That would be my familiar, my little white fluff ball. Side note, because I saw her right there. But yeah, Nibiru. Yeah, no. Back to the planet thing. Really, that's mainly a 4D, more of a 4D thing. There's very few things in 4D that I actually care about, and most of those are it was created here in a movie, and then it got so much attention and so much energy sent to it that it was created in 4D. Now those I like, but all the rest of them, the ones that long time, those bore me, all of them. Enough of the Jedis and the Sith and the little war of the fighting and the endlessness. It's annoying. It's like same old. So they have fun. They have fun toys and stuff, but that's really the only benefit that they have. So you can go up to 5D, and then you can kind of watch them, and then you can go, ooh, I like that. That sounds fun. And then you can just, steal their toy because there are no copyright laws. And then you can just create it, and then you can have fun playing and have none of the seriousness or the drama. No drama. Which I like. I like a distinctive lack of drama. But yeah, and then you got the now a lot of the planets, I don't even correlate them whenever you go up to 5D, considering they space differently. They go to different. They're not in the same exact place. Very few of them do anyway. Like the sun one, like you can go up to 5D and still find the sun version of the 5D sun. And so yeah, those guys are cool. That's one of the fireplaces actually is the sun once you go up to 5D. And then I'm assuming pretty much everyone has seen Avatar. So their planet. Okay, side note, because pixies, are they different from leprechauns? Pixies and leprechauns are very different. Yes. It's harder to distinguish. Let's see if I've frozen. Have I frozen? Okay. Pixies and fairies are harder to distinguish between each other, like the flower fairies, but pixies and leprechauns are very different. Leprechauns normally don't have wings. Yeah, they don't really care for using wings. And they like the flower fairies, they always make it out of like their clothes out of flowers and all of that stuff. Whereas leprechauns go high ornate in their clothing. They like them obviously, and but no, they'll go like high filigree and like designs, especially on like their vests or bodices and stuff. They love going high, intricate on them. And but no, leprechauns are very fun actually. And obviously, I mean, leprechauns were who got through to what's his face, Tolkien. Yeah, Tolkien. He hung out. He got to see and talk to and hang out with leprechauns. They actually let him keep a pair of shoes to prove they were real. So that was really cool. They do like top to bottom. Like I am going to bet money that story about the shoemaker and like the fairies making the shoes and stuff. I bet those were leprechauns. I would bet you money. They're kind of like tiny versions and kind of a mix, half and half of like elves and dwarves. On the two, like elves and dwarves, they're like very different from each other. But leprechauns kind of took the best out of both of them, shrunk it down into size, and just two leprechauns just showed up. That's awesome. But yeah, they like their their ornateness stuff. But I don't think I've ever seen a leprechaun with wings, even though they do fly. But they don't bother to have the wings. Yeah. Let's see. They are, you know, you can read that different ways, Michelle. They are watching. They are watching. Dun dun dun. Depending on how you take that. It's very fun. Yes. So before this, Michelle, have you interacted with many leprechauns? Yeah, I think they kind of just randomly are drawn to you, I think. It's just, oh, okay, now I just will keep randomly meeting new kinds all the time, and I never know who's gonna pop in next. um, did they come to inform us? Yes, do the leprechauns have anything to say? That is true. Well, almost everywhere, considering they don't really like the industrial areas. I mean, they'll pop in for a couple seconds, but really they don't stay there often. So they're not too big on that. Even though they will pop there, they just leave very quickly. Yeah. And that's how it is a lot of times. If you just talk about them, even for a little bit, it's like bloop, bloop, bloop. And then you have the other ones that just stay with you constantly and just will not stop chittering, ever. Kind of like the blonde one and Flower. Oh, Flower does not leave. Even whenever it leaves, it doesn't leave. Like, he splits instead. Just because loves to talk and loves to try to mess with games and technology and prank constantly. It's very fun. Yeah. Let's see here. Michelle. Oh, no, you said that right. Okay. But yeah. Actually similar to ghosts and stuff. I love widget boards. Widget boards are actually a good way to talk to fairies too. If you can't see them yet and you can't hear them yet, because they're a lot of times it's fairies talking to you through a widget board. That's actually how I started talking to a lot of them. After, I got out of like the toddler age where you just, it was nothing abnormal. But yeah, I started talking through the widget board and got a lot of faith that way. That's also how I started talking to my higher self, and which actually is partially her. That's how she's my familiar from that. So, and holy rocks. If you're having trouble seeing them, I mean, clearly, Michelle, you don't have trouble seeing them. But for anyone that is having trouble seeing them and wants to, definitely get the holy rocks. It's just a regular old rock, and it has a hole through it. You put it up, shut the other eye, and it condenses what you're see, and then comprehend what you're seeing. So that'd be a good thing to look for. You'll see them in a lot of creeks and stuff because the water will just wear in a certain spot over and over and over again until it makes the hole. I still look for them just because it's fun to do. Even with starting to see them more, still it's a fun thing from childhood. So I encourage it immensely because it is very fun to do. Let's see. Oh yeah, the bat fairies. Yeah. The bat fairies, they have a lot of fun. They almost always have feet that are the clawed feet because there's reasons why they decided to go with that, just because they think it's very fun to do. They'll also blindfold themselves for fun and then try out echolocation and then laugh at each other whenever they run into trees. Michelle, I just had a vision of see, and then you can have all sorts of fun weirdnesses and Alice through the looking glass situations, which is also heavily encouraged. The more you do that, I think is just the better. Biggest thing is just to go back to being a kid in some ways, considering kids can see them and they don't have any blocks. They don't have any preconceived notions. They don't have any walls. They don't have none of that stuff. So they can see them very easily. And she can see them. And she is forever jumping up and down on the walls to try to catch a fairy and running through the house trying to catch a fairy and or brownies. A lot of brownies play with her, actually, which is very entertaining for me. And as long as they're happy playing with her, then they don't hide my stuff. So it's a win-win situation. Because yeah, if they start feeling ornery, they're gonna start hiding stuff, and they're gonna start like, you know, just making it just enough so it'll stop working. And I'm going, no, stop it. That's another reason to give out gifts. Actually, if they're starting to get ornery, then you can kind of go, please, please, I'll give you cookies. I'll play your favorite music if you'll just give me back my keys. That's another big reason. That's one of the big reasons why I do it a lot of times, just to get them to go back to the more fun but less at my expense games. And it works well because they'll go, all right, fine, for a little while, a little bit. Another thing that they're going to start doing a lot is at night showing themselves to people or trying to get people high enough to be seen by them. I'm not exactly sure why, but I think it has something to do with the shock factor, considering everything is more shocking at night to humans. Most humans, which is pretty entertaining. A lot of them also pretend to be ghosts, by the way. They love pretending to be ghosts. They think it is, again, everything is fun factor. Everything's funny factor. If it can be a joke, if it can be a prank, if it can be a trick of any sort whatsoever, then they will do it. And they will do it repeatedly because human reactions never get old. Ever. Yeah, it can be very, very entertaining. And they're very, very cool. Funny enough, they kind of talk like daffodils, which is very entertaining to me because they're these big, giant hydras. Like, it's very similar to the depictions, random set of heads and necks, but they're huge, they're big. And then they start just chittering away like a bunch of, you know, those college girls that just chitter, and that's what they do with each other all the time, and it is the funniest thing. And let's see, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to keep track, but yeah. Yeah. See, so Kim, you should probably put out bits of honey and have a chat. They're clearly having far too much fun with you. That is one of their favorite pastimes. Moving stuff, hiding stuff, borrowing stuff. They love it. And they also like just moving it. So they didn't steal it because it is somewhere else. They just happen to move it where you probably would never look in the first place, like putting it in the fridge. Yeah. So you need to have a chat with them and just kind of go, okay, I'll do this, please, I will be your friend. I will give you all these excellent good things. Please stop moving stuff. That'd be a good plan. But yeah, so hydras chitter all the time, and the daffodils, just like the daffodils. Daffodils are the chitteriest of all the flowers. It is so funny. And so if you get like a field or even just like a string of them, it's like loud but not loud, and it's very like bell chimey. But somehow they hear each other even though they're all talking over each other. Very, very similar to the groups of girls that you're going, how are you understanding each other? Yeah, giving them honey and bread in exchange, especially cakes, if you give them cakes. Fruit would be another good thing. Anything sweet. They like sweet. Yeah, they really enjoy that stuff. And then, like I said, the playing music, that also would help too, considering then you'll get them distracted on on dancing, and so they'll get totally sidetracked and start dancing, and then they'll forget that they're playing pranks on you. So that's another good deterrent, while also making them happy at the same time. Yeah. And someone else who had popped it. Blah. And then I blank out. Of course I blank out. Hydras, daffodils. Trying to remember. Tracking. What was I saying again? Yes. Blarg. I guess the another goodie to talk about are like the elementals. Even like, because I know a lot of people talk about them, but they always talk about them so seriously. It is very funny. Like, you really can't talk about any of these guys seriously. You really can't, because they just are not serious. Even the elementals, like they can be very temperamental, but they're even then they're still not very serious at all. Kim, I've been seeing lots of horseflies since putting them out on the porch. Horseflies. I don't know. Horseflies are pretty obstinate. Like, there's a few that I actually have not ever seen fairies emulate, and really, horseflies would be one of them. Regular flies, yes. Fruit flies, yes, but not horseflies. And then another one that I never see them emulate are like mosquitoes. Like they have emulated sugar ants, but they've never mimicked fire ants. So interesting little differences. Like just some things they just don't really like being. Mothman? Ooh, Mothman. Mothman, a separate being, or some other. Oh, that's a race. That's an entire race. It's not just one. Mothman is not a singular entity, actually. So that's an entire race. Even though they are most of the time they're male. They appear male anyway. They just happen to like it. They think it goes better with their look. But yeah, no. Like the ones that are, you have like the bad stories about Mothman, and pretty much all of those was someone kind of dressing up into costume to mimic them, to make it a bad thing and try to make people scared of them. But no, they're the Mothmen are pretty cool. They kind of act as they're kind of like guides. So you know that whole like all of the stories about Mothman and predicting these terrible things happening, and they make it all like scary. And did they create it, or were they just talking about it? And blah blah blah. I think they're kind of trying to just help people on the whole like timeline thing. Like, you know, if you keep doing this, you're gonna go to this, and this is gonna be very bad. And that's the kind of stuff that they tend to do. So they're more guidances. Very, very, very calm. They do not have much in the way of emotions. They're not very like at all. They're pretty stoic, pretty calm. Very. They do not talk more than they need to. Mothmen don't. Michelle. Silly is very serious business. Yes, that is the motto of fairies. Absolutely. They will not do anything unless it's fun. And then at the same time, they also seem to somehow make anything about fun, which makes it all the funnier. La la. Kim, some of them look like fairies. Actually, I had a fairy fly up to me standing at my car last year. Actual fairy. The actual fairy that you're talking about, classic, or was it looking like a fly? Out of curiosity, Kim. Because that would be interesting. But yeah, like I said, for some reason they don't go like I think it might be the bitey aspect. Any of the bugs and things that are like really known for just being very bitey or hurty, they tend to not mimic them as much. And I don't know. I guess they just don't really care for that aspect. Bigfoot. Oh, Bigfoot. They're fun. I like Bigfoot. Big feet. However you want to talk about it. No, they're actually a different branch off of human. They never lowered to 3D, so then they kind of became myth to humans. But no, they're a different branching off. And as far as they went, they only went as low as 4, and and a lot of them stayed up in 5. But they couldn't bring themselves to go down. They didn't want to. They stuck very, very, very closely with nature. Very, very, very close. But yeah, so again, entire race. So they have males and females. They have kids. They have all of that good stuff. You can see them now. very easily, actually. You can talk to them now. You could go up to the big forests and probably find them and have very fun conversations with them. They'd probably help you connect to the planet if you're ever having trouble, like the nature aspect of the planet, because they're really, really big on nature. Doesn't someone talk to Big Feet a lot? Bigfoot a lot? People say, I can read so well today. I hear people say they telepathically communicate. Well, they primarily, the true telepathy, yes, they absolutely communicate telepathically. And a lot of times, if they can get a human to understand true telepathy, then they'll communicate that way with them. But no, they have actual vocal cords, so they can talk also. And really, I think a lot of times if they're trying to telepathically communicate, I think they're kind of like how humans think of it, like Professor Xavier, where you actually hear them talking in your mind. I think that's them kind of trying to step any humans that they can, like step them up to get to real telepathy. I think that's really what they're doing. Whenever if they talk telepathy, because they're trying to get the humans up too. You know, there was no feuding between humans and Bigfoot, so they like us. They just could not, and actually they admire us a lot because we went way lower than what, or humans, the species went way lower than what they were willing to do. So down to them, I feel like there's one close by. They're in a lot of places, especially if you're by like any kind of forest. They like forests best. That's why they're normally seen like up in the big foresty areas, because they just like they like being in nature. They like forests. They're not like, you know, garden fairies where they'll go anywhere where there's flowers. They enjoy the environment of forests. That's just kind of their thing. Bigfoot is very pretty accurate. Is the Harry and the Hendersons, only, you know, a lot smarter than Harry and the Hendersons kind of portrayed him into being. But other than that, that was actually pretty spot on, which is probably why it's one of my favorite movies, actually. So definitely watch that. One goes by. Michelle, I've been feeling them and having visions of them this summer. Yeah, they're another one that's going to be pretty close, like one of the first round of introducing to magical creatures. So that wouldn't really be that surprising. And of course, in your case, Michelle, I mean, you know, you're so almost not here anyway. I think you'd hear or read any of them and you'd immediately like connect to them like instantly, which is pretty cool. Kim, I want to protect them from people hurting them. That's impossible. So, no. You do not have to protect anything from anyone else. That's bad on a lot of different levels. You're portraying them as weak, that people can hurt them, which they can't. Yeah, exactly. There is no fear. There is no hunting. There is no persecution. There's none of that ever. That's why you see so many people that go out to like, we're gonna hunt Bigfoot, we're gonna find them, we're gonna catch them, and they never. A bunch of other people that just kind of want to go out and watch them, and they come back with all sorts of stories about seeing Bigfoot and hearing Bigfoot. Like it sounded like there were several of them and they were singing, and all of these different stories. It's kind of like the hunters that go out and they go to the wrong area, and so they wind up with like nothing, because all of the animals knew they were coming, didn't agree to being shot by these people, and then therefore they were not around. It's the same thing. Oh good, Billy Tommy said he would kill it to get rich. Not gonna happen. Impossible. You cannot catch anything. You cannot catch a unicorn. You cannot catch a Bigfoot. You cannot catch a leprechaun. You cannot catch a fairy. You cannot catch a dragon. You cannot catch a no. That's one of the big differences. take their skin whenever they've shed their seal skin. Then like they have to marry you or something until they get it back. And there's a bunch of stories like that. Selkie's one of the big ones, but a lot of the other ones have these stories. Absolute human fantasy. Cannot happen. Absolutely. It's one of the funniest things about them. And anyone that has that mentality will, as long as they keep that mentality, they won't go up to 5D. And they'll never even remotely get close enough in 4D in order to find them. That's why a lot of them don't even bother sticking around in 4D, because there's still a lot of fighting and death and fear and killing and stuff. So they don't want to bother because they don't like that. Michelle, all-time hide and seek champions of all eternity. Oh, Billy is Tommy's brother. Okay, yeah, he's never gonna catch him. Even though it'd be funny if he wasted a lot of time and money going and trying. I mean, it's as funny as the wannabe hunters that go out there trying to catch the biggest thing ever and then wind up with nothing. It's very funny. But yeah, it is. It's been an hour, so yeah. Looks like time's up. So thanks for the talk tonight. Grateful, much love. Yes, very fun to talk to you, Michelle, as always, as always. And yeah, so hopefully I gave you ideas and hints and tricks and funness. And it's always just fun to kind of chit chat about them anyway. So yeah, and who knows when my next one will be. I kind of step in whenever needed. So yeah, lots of fun, and I guess I'll talk to you guys later, either in the forums or wherever we wind up talking at any given moment. So bye-bye, and very fun that you were here to listen, G-Man. Yes. Bye-bye, bye-bye, and thank you so much, Kim. All right, bye. Yeah. Okay. And then,